especially for students, when you tell them you are doing a second year or a fourth year project, they will say, if you ask them what methodology did you use, they say, I used the Agile programming methodology, which is okay. But you see, that is a generic methodology. When you are doing a project, you don't stop there. You say how you will use it or how you will customize it to your product. So we empirical process. And I define the term empirical. Empirical is a process that is backed by facts. You do anything based on the facts that you have collected. You do not use theories. So you see, in the traditional methodologies, your planning is based on the user requirements. But you can imagine a situation where the user requirements are not clear, or a situation where you are venturing into an area that you don't know. Let's say you have been developing information systems, but now, which are database based, but now you are going into AI, which is machine learning based. So what are you going to do? Never done AI, but now your customer requires an AI system, and you've never developed an AI system. So this is where we now start using the agile methodology. So because you do not know you don't know the requirements, you start with general requirements about what the user wants. So you'll start by asking him, okay, what type of system do you want? He'll tell you, I want a system that is going to learn. So what does learning involve? You say it involves giving the system data, and it's going to learn from that data, and it's going to make its future decisions based on that data. So you start thinking about what algorithms do I use for learning and so on. So you develop a small component, then you show the customer that small component. Then he gives you his reaction or his feedback. And based on the feedback, you refine the requirements. So you'll find as time goes on, the requirements keep increasing because you are refining them and you are plugging in new requirements. Software. Say Scrum is focused on the use of an empirical process that allows teams to respond rapidly, efficiently, and an important question or an important statement that we made is that now I can't do this now. Now the class has started. I can't be adding students when a class has started. So what we said is traditional project management methods fix requirements in an effort to control time and cost. So in traditional project management, most of the time we assume that the client knows the requirements or collectively, you and the client, you will come up with requirements, and then you'll come up with a requirement specification document. Once you've come up with that document, you assume that you will not add more requirements or you will not subtract more requirements. So you fix the requirements. Now you fix the requirements because you base your time and cost on those requirements. Now later on we shall be looking at planning, and we shall see how planning depends on the requirements. But in the Scrum methodology or in Agile methodology, you do not fix requirements. Instead, you fix time and cost and see which requirements will fit within that time and cost. What is happening? So they're like exact opposite. Traditional, the way traditional, the way we approach develop product development from the traditional way or using the agile methodology, they're like exact opposites. So in one, you fix requirements and you base your cost and time on the requirements. In the other, you fix the time and cost and you fit in the requirements. So Scrum fixes time and cost in an effort to control requirements. Now, how do we do this? We do this using what are called time boxes, collaborative ceremonies, prioritized product backlog, and frequent feedback cycles. Now, Scrum comes with its own terminology. So some of these terms may look like they are new terms, but they are not new terms. It's just Scrum's formal way of talking about certain things, like a prioritized product backlog. A backlog is basically a list of requirements. But in this list of requirements, you prioritize them, where you say, I'll give the most attention to this item number 1, and I'll give the least attention to item number n. That is what we mean by a prioritized product backlog. Then frequent feedback cycles is after every stage, you consult the stakeholders and get their feedback. And based on their feedback, you go back and repeat that cycle until the stakeholders are all satisfied. Now, what are time boxes and collaborative events or ceremonies? Time boxing is allocates a fixed and maximum unit of time to an activity called a time box within which a planned activity takes place. So you decide that this activity is going to take place within this time and this time. And for Scrum, we usually set it at a maximum of 4 weeks. It's between 1 and 4 weeks. It is used by agile principle-based project management approaches and for personal time management. Then ceremonies are events which we are also, ceremonies could either be events or meetings. But in the jargon of Scrum, we call them ceremonies. We call events or meeting ceremonies. Now, depending on where you are or at which point in the project you are, we could have what is called a sprint planning meeting. We could have a sprint review meeting, a sprint retrospective, and a daily Scrum, and we shall be looking at this. And I think we started looking at it. So I think we talked about this, where we said Scrum is an agile development methodology, and we've seen that we have other methodologies used in the development of software-based development of software based on iterative and incremental processes. Iterative, you keep repeating, and incremental, you are building one component after the other one is finished. So it is an adaptable, fast, flexible, and effective agile framework that is designed to deliver value to the customer throughout the development. So the primary objective of Scrum is to satisfy the customer's needs through transparency in communication, collective responsibility, and continuous progress. Communication is that you must constantly talk to the stakeholders. You must talk management, you must talk to the client, you must talk to the users. And you must be explicit about it. You must say right from the onset that at every stage, this is how I'll be communicating. You'll say I'll use email, I'll call meetings, I'll be using SMS and so on. So you tell him, and that's what we mean by transparency. Then collective responsibility. You are saying that this product that we are building, does not belong to the developers. This is our product. You tell the users that this is your product. How do you want it to operate? You tell management, this is our product. We need this kind of money. Is that acceptable with you? So collective, so that one doesn't say that you didn't tell us this. And then continuous progress. Every time you develop something, you are showing the client and you are adding it onto something, the preceding item. So the Scrum development method overview development is used when requirements are difficult to define or subject to change, subject to rapid change. So it's mainly used for software development. That is what we said, but we could use it for other types of, in other domains other than software development. So just like I told you, Scrum has its own terminology. So in Scrum, you'll find what is called a product owner. And for all these terminologies, like the people that are involved in Scrum, they have different roles. So you'll find a product owner has a different role, a development team has a different role. So a product owner is a representative of the stakeholder and customers who use the software. Like University of Nairobi, you'll find we have the exam department, we have the academic department, we have the finance department, we have the students, we have the lecturers. So they want a system to do something. Each of them wants a system to do something for them. So, but they cannot go to the sponsor of the university to ask. A student can't go and say, this is what we want. They can only do that via the university management. So the system is owned by the university and it's going to be financed by the government. So it's management that is the representative of the stakeholders. And I've named like in the university, I've named the stakeholders, where I've said there's finance, there is academic, and so on. So the university may want an integrated system, a system that brings all these departments together to share information. So they may request for an integrated system. Finance wants to have access to the class lists. Lecturers want to know who has paid, so that they only administer an exam to those people who have paid. And this is going to help the finance department in collecting fees. So you see, they require an integrated system. But finance department can't go on its own. Neither can students, nor can lecturers. So what happens is that there has to be a representative. So that representative is what we call the product owner. Now, the product owner focuses on the business part and is responsible for the return on investment. Now, what we mean is he has to convince the person who is producing the money of the value of the system. And that's what we mean by the business part. And for him to do that, he must say there must be some return on investment. You are going to tell your sponsor, you're going to tell the government, we need 300,000 to buy an integrated system. You have to convince him what are the benefits. Yeah, you are requesting me 300 million. What value do I get out of this 300 million? Now, later on, we shall be looking at return on investments, and we shall realize that for return on investments, we have tangible benefits and intangible benefits. Tangible benefits is, like you can see, you are making a profit. Intangible benefits may include things like improving efficiency. And it's very difficult to measure something like efficiency. So that is the product owner. Like I've said, he focuses on the business part. Then the product owner translates the mission of the project to the team, which validates benefits in stories. Again, stories in this case, we are using it in the context of Scrum, where a story is a user experience, where somebody is going to say, these are my experiences, in stories to be incorporated into the product backlog and prioritizes them on a regular basis. So he's going to translate the vision into what I'm calling the specification for the system, what the system is supposed to do. A vision most times is one sentence, and it is it carries a lot of weight. So it has to be broken down into user requirements. And a vision normally is a long-term thing. It's like trying to envision where you are going to be 5 years from now. Like you say, our vision is to be the center of excellence in East Africa. Now, when you say you want to be the center of excellence in East Africa, what does that mean? There are certain things you have to do. Like a university, you say, I'll have to be doing so much research. I have to be graduating so many students. So that vision has to be converted into things that are measurable. And this will happen in the future. So you are telling somebody, in the future, this is what I want to do. So that is the product owner. So the product owner has to articulate the vision and change that vision into objectives, which are measurable things. Then we have the development team, they are the ones who are coming up with the product. So mainly it's made up of a group of professionals with necessary technical knowledge to develop the project. So they will have programming skills. They will have human skills so that they can gather requirements and so on. So they will have many different types of skills, because to get a product, you will need many different skills, not only programming skills. Because when you only have programming skills, you'll write a very good program, but it's not going to be doing what the customer wants. So the development team includes specialist roles such as developer, subject matter expert, and so on. Then we have the Scrum Master, more or less like the project manager, but in terms of Scrum, we call it the Scrum Master. Now, the Scrum Master leads the team, and in this case, the team is the development team and guides them to comply with the rules and processes of the methodology. He manages the reduction of impediments of the project and works with the product owner to maximize the return on investment. So those are two things. He tries to ensure that the risk is minimal. And he also tries to ensure that the product gives the 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 the, 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 the product owner benefits, which may be tangible or intangible. So the Scrum Master is in charge of keeping Scrum up to date, because remember, Scrum is an iterative process and an incremental process. So he has to keep the team up to date, meaning he has to involve all the stakeholders, and he has to communicate to all the stakeholders on the state of the product. So he provides coaching, mentoring, and training to the team in case it needs it. Now, we talked about a project manager, and we looked at the qualities of a project manager. So take those qualities and use them on what I'm calling the Scrum Master. So what is the Scrum methodology and the process? That is what I think, that's where we stopped at. And that's what we are going to look at. Now, Scrum methodology is a very easy methodology to implement and popular for the quick results. Yes. Yes, go ahead. Yes, somebody wanted to ask a question about. Sorry? Yes, I can hear you. Okay, that's a very good question. Okay, first of all, when I say 300 million, is just a figure I picked randomly. It could be 500 million. Uh, it could be 100 million. It's just a figure used for an example. What we did in the 300 million, uh, determined it this way. We did we determined it a result of what has occurred. I
Excuse me, sir. Your audio is very choppy. I don't know if I'm the only one.
passed.
Yes, he's breaking.
The department, the students orders. Sorry about that. I think I don't know why the network is unstable on my side. Can you hear me? Okay, fine. Sorry about that. So, like I was answering that, and in fact, I deliberately used the word an integrated system. So, what happened is that the exam processed marks, but these marks come from lecturers. But now the lecturers are, each lecturer is processing marks on his or her laptop or desktop. The university wants students to pay fees. The only people who know about fees, about the money collected, is the finance. But finance have their own system, exam have their own system, lecturers have their own system, and so on. So finance is not effectively collecting money. So there now comes a problem. The problem is the university needs money, needs people to pay fees for it to function. But there is no effective way of collecting fees. So that now becomes a project where the university realizes there is a need to there is a need to have what is called an integrated system, a system where for its operation it will use information from the different sources. It will use the information from finance, it uses information from examination, it uses information from the lecturers, and so on. So they say the main objective is to have an integrated system which brings all these components together. So that is a general requirement. Now, the next, and we now to cost it, they will ask finance, what are your requirements? What do you want your component to do? They'll ask examination, what do you want from your system? They'll ask the lecturers, what do you require of this system? Then they'll put down all the requirements. And then the technical team, the project team at the planning phase. Now, remember, I've told you we'll do planning. They will look at the requirements. And from looking at the requirements, they will start seeing what each component is going to cost. And then they'll have that total cost. Now, that total cost is what this project management team is going to present to the university management board. Now, remember, all these people, uh, university top management said, how come we have so many students? We are having 50,000 students. And how come from these 50,000 students, these ones are sponsored by the government, these ones are fee-paying students? How come we are not collecting money from the self-sponsored students? And yet we have 50,000 students. And if we collected all this money, we would not be into this problem. So top management starts asking those questions. Then they go to finance. Finance say our records are not okay. We are not getting, students are doing exams. Some are graduating without having paid any fees. So it's management who starts pointing out the problem. Then somebody gives a solution. Most of the time, the solution will be given by the technical part. It may be given by the chairman of the ICT department. He says our systems are not integrated. So what we need is an integrated system. Then top management tasks or forms a project team. Now this project team will have to come up with the budget. And we shall see how later on we shall be seeing during planning how they come up with the budget. Now it's based on this budget that figure that I was quoting, the 300,000, comes about. So top management is given that by a technical team. But the technical team did not come up with an arbitrary figure. The technical team came up with that figure based on the requirements. So now the university management board goes to the government and tells them, yes, we are not collecting enough money because we need an integrated system and we don't even have that money. Can you give us a grant of 300 million? So the government gives the 300 million and the project proceeds. So you can see, that's why I was saying the Scrum Master is the representative of the other stakeholders. I don't know whether I have answered your question. Whoever asked, I've forgotten him. Yes. No, the product owner will still be the university. You see, the university, like University of Nairobi, has an ICT department. So they usually ask the ICT department, are you capable of doing this? Then the ICT department says yes or no. In case the answer is no, then the university is going to put out a tender and it'll say, we want an integrated system to do A, B, C, D. Interested parties, please apply. Now, when the interested parties apply, the university will first of all, they will say that we want an integrated system that is going to go for 300,000. Then they put it in the newspaper. These other external companies or external entities will apply to undertake the project. Now, the university will undergo a vetting process. Let's say 10 have applied. They'll have to vet them. And the university, like the procurement department, has a template which they use for vetting, where they look at the history, they look at your financial statements, they look at your record, they look at your tax status, and so on. So, and it's I've gone to one of these meetings. This is a template that specifies those things. So you award marks, and then the one with the highest mark is awarded the tender. So the university has stated that we want an integrated system and it's going to cost 300,000. So based on that, they'll pick a company. Now that company is going to develop a product, and that product will belong to the University of Nairobi. So the University of Nairobi is still the product owner. Does that answer you? Okay. Okay, so let's continue. So we are now looking at the process. We've said it's easy. It's as a starting point, it has a list of objectives and requirements that make up the project plan. Now, I've just said, we start with a general objective. We want an integrated system. And that is a very general term. And the fact when you say we want an integrated system has been brought about by a certain need. There are certain things you are not able to do. Now, you have to implement that project. You have to subdivide it into requirements. Now, it's based on these requirements that the system is going to be designed. So in Scrum methodology...
Presenting, I'm not seeing your screen.
Oops, then I'm not presenting. Okay. I forgot. Oh, okay, when I went offline, I think I forgot to put it in presentation view. I hope now you can see it. Can you now see it?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So in Scrum, after you have put down the objective, you prioritize them, where you you prioritize by balancing between the value of the project and the cost. So and this will determine how you will do your iterations. So each Scrum event facilitates adaptation of some aspects of the process, the product, and the progress of relationships. Now, what we mean by adaptation is you must accept that there will be changes. So a process is not going to be fixed. The product, or rather the mini products, are not going to be fixed. They will change. Remember, the requirements are not known beforehand. So the requirements will become clear as the project is executed, as the project proceeds. So Scrum is executed in temporary blocks that are short and periodic, called sprints. Now, if you remember last time, I told you that Scrum is not an acronym. Scrum was borrowed from the game of rugby, where every time there's an infringement, the game is restarted with a scrum. And in rugby, we also have sprints. If you've watched it, you'll notice that somebody gets the ball and it starts running, and usually the target is to make a try. So again, the term sprints is borrowed from rugby. So, and in rugby, you may have many scores. Now, those many scores come as a result of these sprints. So potentially, each sprint should result in a score. So the score is the target. Now, at the end of the game, we sum up all the tries. And when we sum up all the tries, it tells us whether we have won or we have not won. Let me just close this window. So you can see it borrows heavily from Scrum. So Scrum is executed in temporary blocks that are short and periodic, called sprints. Sprints usually range from 2 to 4 weeks, which is the term for feedback and reflection. Each sprint is an entity in itself, just like in the rugby game. Once you make a try, the game has to restart. But finally, we shall sum up all the sprints, or the results of all the sprints, and then we shall provides a complete results. It is a variation of the final product that must be able to be delivered to the client with the least possible effort when requested. So this is an example of the Scrum Agile product management. So you can see we have inputs from customers, team managers, executives, and so on. Now, that's why whoever asked that question, I told him that was a good question because it gives an example. So you can see, like in the case of university, inputs will come from finance, it will come from lecturers, it will come from students, and so on. Now, these inputs go to the product owner. And remember, the product owner could have asked a question: why is it that we have 50,000 students? And if all of them paid, we would not be having financial problems. So he asked that question. Now, in answering that question, all the other stakeholders will be asked and they'll give him input. So based on the input, which goes to top management, the product owner, together with the technical team, come up with, they say, we need an integrated system. Now, what does an integrated system do? You'll start saying, One is going to bring in all these components. It's going to produce. It's going to produce reports. It's going to send out alerts to students. It's going to give lecturers lists of eligible students to do exams and so on. So those are specified as requirements, but in the Scrum, we call them the product backlog. So we have requirements from number 1 to number n, and those requirements are prioritized. So we get a prioritized list of what is required, the features, bugs to fix, and so on. Then we go to the sprint planning meeting. Remember, in Scrum, what we said is that we fix time and we fix cost, and then we put requirements into that. Now we have prioritized our list. So having prioritized our list, we can say the first sprint is going to have from requirement 1 to requirement 6. So we are saying for these 4 weeks, we shall do from 1 to 6. Then the next 4 weeks, the next sprint shall do 7 to 10. And they do that. And this is why we are calling sprint planning meeting. You are preparing sprints where you've looked at your prioritized requirements and you are taking them and fixing those requirements to a certain sprint. And the sprint is 1 to 4 weeks. So as you can see, we have many of these here. So here we have like 3 sprints. Now these sprints have come up from the sprint plan meeting. So just like the name suggests, you are planning for the sprints. So like in this case, we have planned for 3 sprints. Now, who is planning for these sprints? The people planning for these sprints are the Scrum team under direction of the sprint of the Scrum Master. So each of these tasks, and we are calling this the task breakout, where you have mapped certain requirements to certain sprints, and each sprint is going to take a maximum of 4 weeks. So let's assume all of them are going to take 4 weeks. Now, in these 4 weeks, for each day in the 4 weeks, you shall have what is called a 24-hour sprint. Now, the 24-hour sprint is a daily meeting in the morning and you decide on the time. Are you going to be meeting in the mornings or are you going to meet in the evenings? Now, in this daily 24-hour sprint, you are asking yourself, what did I set to do? What did I set out to do? What did I do? What am I going to do? So you do that. And then you come up with what is called a burn down or up chart. Now, what this means, it's a board where, depending on how you have done it, you list the items you have done. So you could list the items starting from the highest priority to the lowest priority, or starting from the lowest priority to the highest priority. So what the burn down means is you cross out what you have done. Now, depending on how you have arranged them, either you start with the highest priority at the top and the lowest priority at the bottom, you start crossing them out. Each task that you do, you cross it out. And that's why we are calling the burn up or burn down chart. It's visible to all people, so that you say anything that because you already planned. Now, when you plan, you say these are the tasks you shall do. Anything that you do, you cross out. So again, in the 24-hour sprint, you have daily stand-up meetings. Basically, for each sprint, you must have a meeting where all of you meet and all of you decide on what you want to do, what you have done, and what you intend to do. Now, and you can see this is an iterative process, but it has to be between a certain start date and a certain end date. And that's why we are saying the sprint end date and team deliverable do not change. Because you already planned for it in the sprint planning meeting. You are saying, in these 4 weeks, this is what you shall do. So you are not going to change. You are not going to add requirements. You are not going to remove requirements. You are not going to say, we want more time. So because you have thought about it. Then finally, when the sprint team is satisfied and the Scrum Master is satisfied, you have the finished work. So in the finished work, you do what is called the sprint review, and you do what is called the sprint retrospective. Review, you look at the sprint. Did we complete it successfully? Is the client happy? Retrospective, you say, what could we have done better? And so you are going to do all this. You are going to do that for all the sprints. Now remember, like here we've said that we have 3 sprints. So you do it for all the sprints. But remember, these sprints will collectively work towards one product. So we will have the main sprint that is made up of very many sprints. So that is how it works. Now, this is still talking about the same thing, but here we include more information. We include the product owner, Scrum Master, Scrum team members, and stakeholders. So here, rather than just saying inputs from customers, we are naming the people who are involved. But otherwise, everything else remains the same. So, Scrum priorities. Remember, we talked about priorities here. In priorities, the stories, now I said stories is a Scrum term for saying the experiences. Now again, Scrum comes up with its terminology. So it has what is called the front burner. Front burner is what you are currently working on. Back burner, what you'll be working on. And then fridge is for later. Now, priorities are revisited with each new sprint, because you may find that you go through a sprint and that sprint tells you, even though you prioritize this item number 1, you made it number 1, but number 2 has a higher priority than number 1. Remember, we use Scrum in cases where we don't have a lot of information. Information comes as we are doing something. So you may have prioritized something, you may have given it a higher priority, but after you've gone through the process, you realize that it is not, that there's another one which has a higher priority than the one you gave. So sprint, okay, we've talked about priorities. Remember, we are now talking about this. Now, the sprint or the sprint planning meeting now is held at the beginning of each sprint. So first of all, we have what is called the major sprint, where we want the final product. But we are saying we cannot come with the final product without dividing our product into many phases. So the sprint planning meeting is held at the beginning of each sprint. All the members of the team participate in the meeting. That is the product owner, Scrum Master, and all the development team. The entire Scrum team must understand and define what objectives should be obtained in each sprint, or the sprint goal. From this point, the development team must design a work plan to achieve the objective. This planning should allow one to see if the sprint goal involves a workload according to the duration stipulated for the sprints. So like we said, in Scrum, we fix time and we fix cost. and then we put in the objectives. Then planning in Scrum still, the client shows the results to be achieved in that sprint and the requirements of the deliverable product. So you are talking to the client. You are saying we are going to do this. At the end of this, we shall have this product. So here a discussion is carried out in which the development team evaluates what elements of the list can be delivered. So remember, it's not the development team that is doing this thing alone. He's doing it with the client. And that's where communication is important. So they'll agree with the client. Yes, you want us to show this in 4 weeks. So you'll say it's possible, or you'll say it's not possible, or you'll say, but we can do this in 2 weeks. Why don't we add other things, and so on. So both the Scrum Master and Product Owner must collaborate to clarify any aspect of the requirements. Finally, the development team must explain how they will organize the team's work to achieve the sprint goal. Now, then we have the daily stand-up meetings. So in these daily stand-up meetings, the agenda is what was done yesterday, what will be done today. Are there any problems the Scrum Master must address, such as resource issue out of the control of the team? So there are certain things the team may not do. So they'll have to tell the Scrum Master, like they'll say, I think we need an additional programmer, or none of us understands this language, this development environment very well. Can you give us a resource person? So they can't bring the resource person. They must do that through the Scrum Master. The Scrum Master is the one who is going to look for the additional funds to bring in this other person. So the events in Scrum, remember I've been talking about these things. We have sprint planning meeting, daily stand-up meetings, and so on. So the events include the sprint, which is the basic unit of work for a Scrum team. And it's the main feature that marks the difference between Scrum and other models for agile development. So Scrum brings in the concept of a sprint. Then there's the sprint planning. Its goal is to define what is going to be done and how it's going to be done. This meeting is held at the beginning of each sprint and defines how it will approach the project coming from the product backlog stages and the deadlines. Remember, I told you in Scrum, the requirements are referred to as the product backlog. So each sprint is composed of different features. Like you could say collecting requirements, that could be a sprint. Designing the system, that could be another sprint. And so on. Implementing the system, that could be another sprint. But you see, implementing the system now is doing the actual work. So you may find that as you are implementing the system, you have 10 modules. Now, for those 10 modules, you could call each module a sprint. Then the daily Scrum, its objective is to evaluate the progress and trend until the end of the sprint. It synchronizes the activities and creates a plan for the next 24 hours. It's a brief meeting that takes place daily during the sprint period. 3 questions are answered individually. So it's a daily meeting, but this meeting is in the Scrum team. So where each member is asking, what did I do yesterday? What am I going to do? What help do I need? So basically, it's a meeting that is bringing in each person in the development team where he's saying what he did. And so so that it's a collective responsibility. Then in the daily Scrum, the Scrum Master should try to solve problems or obstacles that arise. Then we have the sprint review, where its goal is to show what work has been completed with regards to the product backlog for future deliverables. The finished sprint is reviewed, and there should already be a clear and tangible advancement in the product to present to the client. So, and then the sprint retrospective, the team reviews the completed goals of the finished sprint. They write down the good and the bad so as not to repeat the mistakes again. So in the sprint retrospective, you reflect on what you did. So this stage serves to implement improvements from the point of view of the development process. And the goal of the sprint retrospective is to identify possible process improvements and generate a plan to implement them in the next sprint. So as you can see, this table covers all the things that we have talked about here and also here. So Scrum artifacts designed to guarantee the transparency of key information in decision making. So we have what I'll call, again, we know what artifact means. Artifact is a product, but in terms of Scrum, is talking about the properties of the product that is developed, so that in future you can use that information to improve on the next product. So Scrum artifacts include the product backlog, which is a list that collects everything the product needs to satisfy potential customers. It is prepared by the product owner, and the functions are prioritized according to what is more and less important for the business. The goal is for the product owner to answer the question, what should be done? So in terms of Scrum, we are talking about it being information that relates to the product that has been produced. Then we have a sprint backlog, which is a subset of the items in the product backlog, which are selected by the team to perform during the sprint. So here we are collecting all the requirements or all information pertaining to a particular product and putting them as requirements. Then in those requirements, remember, we have prioritized them and we have split them into things that can be done within a certain period of time. So we could have 1,000 requirements, but we split them into 10 requirements. Into 10 chunks of requirements. Now, those 10 are what we are calling the sprint backlog. So the team establishes the duration of each sprint. Usually, the sprint backlog is displayed on physical board called Scrum board, which makes the development process visible to everyone who enters the development area. Now, this is what I was saying here. For each sprint, you have a burn up or burn down chart. So because for each sprint, you have the requirements that have to be met. So as you finish one requirement, you tick it. So everybody coming into that room where a certain team is working knows where the team is with regard to the project. So we call that the Scrum board. So increment is the sum of all tasks, use cases, user stories, product backlogs, and any element that was developed during the sprint and that will be made available to the end user in the form of software. So what are the caveats, or what are the necessary things for Scrum development? One, it requires committed, mature developers. Major work must still be done upfront. It needs commitment and involvement of the product owner. It's best for products that require frequent updates. It's not so good for large, totally new products that will not allow frequent updates after release. So this is an example of the Agile methodology and the waterfall methodology. As you can see, for the Agile methodology, you start at a certain point. This axis is for change. Like when you start, you do not have anything. Let's say we are talking about gathering requirements. Now, after some time, you'll have a requirement specification document. Now, that stage will have that reflects a change, because initially you had nothing, you had no document. Then now you have a document after 4 weeks. So there's certainly a change from no document to a document, and that changes, as you can see, is incremental, because you start with nothing, and as time goes on, you are coming up with the requirements, and at some stage, you will have the requirement specification document. This circle represents a milestone. Now, at that stage, you go back. Now you start another phase, and you keep on doing like that. Now, in the traditional waterfall method, we freeze, and we have this, instead of taking a phase and splitting it into small things, we take one phase, like gathering the whole requirements. Here, the gathering of requirements could involve many things. It could involve you interviewing. It could involve you sending out questionnaires, doing a site survey, and so on. But here, we just say gathering requirements, and we take it as if it is just one phase that cannot be decomposed into smaller phases. Now, this increases risk, because if you say that we shall have milestone at the time I'm presenting the requirement specification, by that time, 3 months will have passed. But here you will say, I'm going to divide the process of gathering requirements. I'm going to divide those 3 months into 1 month sprints. So if I'm dividing into 1 month sprint, then what will happen is that if something is wrong, or if the methodology of gathering requirements is wrong, I will detect it early. But here, I will detect it only after I have finished, after 3 months. But here, I'll detect it after 1 month, and I'll correct it after 1 month. So what we are saying here is that in the traditional methodology, which is represented by the waterfall methodology, we freeze as a phase, and then we start the next phase. But here, what we are doing is that we are taking a phase, and we can split this phase into 4 sprints. And you detect the problem early, and you can fix the problem early. So for Agile methodology, we have smoother effort and less risk. For the waterfall methodology, or the traditional methodology, we have effort peaks and high risk. So what I want you to do, remember I've said Agile is a general term. Now we have different formal methodologies that implement the Agile methodology. We have extreme programming, we have dynamic system development method, ATAN, we have Crystal, we have feature-driven development. So what I would want you to do, remember when I was introducing the course, I said that I'll be giving you what is called directed reading, where I tell you go and read a particular thing. So I want you to go to the internet and find out the meaning of framework, especially with respect to project management. extreme programming, dynamic DSDM, Crystal, and FDD. That is for directed reading. Any questions or comment?
I have a question.
Yes.
I'm having trouble understanding the difference between incremental and iterative. Which one is it in the case where you're aggregating feedback to build onto one product? And then which one is it where you're using feedback, yes, but you're building multiple products?
Okay. Now, I hope I'll be able to answer you appropriately. Okay. Now, I'm taking you back to this because remember, I've used the word continuum. Continuum, what it means is we don't have clear boundaries. So, you cannot place a boundary here, or you cannot place a boundary here. So it's actually a movement. We are moving from predictive to iterative to incremental to agile. Now, iterative is where, let's say, a customer tells you, I want an AI system. And he tells you, this is what I want it to do. Now, what you do as the developer, you go and start looking at the theory of machine learning. First of all, you'll ask him, what AI system do you want? And he'll tell you something like, I want a system that can do face recognition or number plate recognition. He tells you that. Now, what you do, you've not done AI at all. So you'll go and start looking at AI techniques for face recognition. You look at the different algorithms and you look at if you try to find out if any system has been implemented. Now, after you've settled on an algorithm, you will code. Now, once you code, you will show the customer the first product. Now, remember, it's your first time to do an AI system. The customer has also not used an AI system. He has only just had, let's say he says, I want a number plate recognition system. So he has been told, you see, if we have a number plate recognition system in place, we won't need a watchman. So he says, okay, that's what I want. So you show him a prototype. Now, based on the prototype, remember what he started with, he said, I've been told that there's a number plate recognition system which will eliminate the need for a watchman. So you have gone to research machine learning techniques, you come up with a system, you show him. Now remember, that is the first prototype. Now, the moment you've done you've shown him the first prototype, he's going to react to it. He's going to say, okay, your system seems, yeah, it's doing what I wanted, but it's printing results in black and white. Can it be done in a color? So you see, he first of all started with, I want a number plate recognition system. He's just been told that such things exist. He has not seen one. You have started, and what you are showing him is giving out things in black and white. So he asks you, can it be done in color? You say, yeah, let me. Now remember, you have the first prototype, you've shown him. And from the first prototype, he's now refining his requirements. Now he's saying, I want it in black and white. You go, the second iteration, you show him a system. It's in black and white. So that is now the second prototype. You show him. Then he tells you, is it possible for it to record the time that this vehicle came in and the time that is left? Remember, initially, he didn't tell you that. He just told you, I want something to be recording number plates. Now you go and say, okay, my AI system will need a database. So you go and include a database where it will now be recording the time that this vehicle is coming and the time that it's going to leave. And you already made it to read black and white. So when now you put in a database, you are now going to show him the third prototype. Now you can see you have not delivered the final product. You at this point you are doing iterative, and that's why I said it's continuum. We don't have a border. But as you are iterating, you notice that the modules in your system are incrementing. They are increasing. So the modules are increasing, and the product is growing bigger. And because it's growing bigger, we now say it is incremental. And you can see there is no fine dividing line where we are saying that this is iterative and this is incremental. It started with the first prototype, it went to the second prototype, but as it's going to the second prototype and then the third prototype, it is increasing. And you'll go through this process until you get to the final product. And basically that is how the agile works. So you can see with each prototype, we are refining requirements. We started with a very general requirement, but based on what we are showing the client, the requirements keep changing. And we are refining those requirements until the client is satisfied and you are satisfied with the product. Is that answering you or it's way out?
It's quite accurate. Thanks.
Okay. Okay, it's 10:26. We stop at 11:15. Let me just introduce something else. Let me just briefly introduce this. Okay, remember in the last slide, one of the things I wanted you to do is to do some background reading on what the word framework means. This is a confusing term, and I'm saying confusing because our master students don't like doing programming projects. They don't like writing code. I don't know why. Even the ones who are doing computer science, they like doing what is called a framework. They like doing what are called models or frameworks, which do not involve writing code. But now I want you to read the meaning of that word so that you can define it formally. But to me, what a framework is in very general terms is like a skeleton for project management. What is the skeleton? You know, like a human being, we need a skeleton. This skeleton is what holds everything together. So when I say a framework for project management, I'm thinking about things that make project management possible, or things that formalize project management. So at the end of this lecture, the learner should be able to critically analyze project management as a profession. In other words, we'll ask ourselves, is project management a profession? Can you go to university and do a BSc in project management? And once you have your BSc in project management, are you going to call yourself a professional, just the way a doctor calls himself a professional, an architect calls himself a professional, engineer calls himself a professional. Why must doctors go through internship? You've been hearing this debate for the past 10 days about doctors and internships. Why, for doctors, they call it locum. Why do engineers, why do lawyers go to the Kenya School of Law, and why are they attached to other lawyers? Why do you finish your BSc in electrical engineering, and when you finish, you are not called an engineer? There's something else that you must do to be called an engineer. So I've talked about lawyers, I've talked about doctors, I've talked about architects. Why are those people called professionals? Can you call yourself, if you do a project management degree or a master's in project management, at which point do you start calling yourself a professional? So this is what, at the end of this lecture, I should be able to explain. Then at the end of this lecture, I should explain the roles of the Project Management Institute, the International Project Management Association, and the Project Management Body of Knowledge, with those abbreviations, PMI, IPMA, PMBOK. Then explain the components of the framework for project management. So the framework for project management considers certain things. They ask questions about whether project management is a profession. They get input from the Project Management Institute. Then the Project Management Institute has defined what are called project management areas. Then we have what are called project management certifications. Yes, you can do a master's in project management, but you're not going to call yourself a project manager. You're not going to call yourself a professional. There are certain things you need to do. Then we have the project management body of knowledge areas. Then we have project management institute process groups. And we have the process groups and knowledge areas mapping. This was defined in the project management body of knowledge version 6. Right now we are in version 7. Version 7 doesn't really talk about this mapping, but PMBOK version 6 sees how we map project groups to knowledge areas. Now we shall see what these things are. Now let's start by asking ourselves whether project management is a profession. Now, many different professions contribute to the theory and the practice of project management. Engineers and architects have been managing major projects since prehistory. Prehistory refers to that period where people are not documenting things that they were doing. Like Stonehenge, people were not documenting. The Egyptians, when they were building pyramids, they were not documenting. And that's why a lot of interest and research has gone in trying to see how were these people able to build these pyramids without equipment. And it's because it's not documented. There's a gap in knowledge between the Stonehenge and between when the pyramids were built and when people started documenting. So there's a gap. And because of that gap, those questions still linger. And people try to give theories about it, but sometimes those theories are not satisfactory. Because the blocks that were used to build pyramids were so big, and even if those guys were using slaves, those slaves must have suffered. There must have be something that they were using, which they didn't document. So this is why we are saying engineers and architects have been managing major projects since prehistory. Now, since approximately the 1960s, there have been efforts to professionalize the practice of project management as a specialization on its own. You know, once something becomes a profession, what it means is that any other person, professionalism brings in standardization, meaning that when you do something, somebody else should be able to repeat what you did. He doesn't have to undo what you did. He should be able to understand what you did and do it the way you did it. That's why somebody will start an operation, somebody is ill and he has to be operated on. Doctors here will start an operation. Then it doesn't go as expected. Then somebody goes to South Africa. Doctors from South Africa will either undo it or will continue from where it was left. But for something to be a profession, what it means is that if you are a doctor in Kenya and there's a doctor in Russia, you should be able to speak the same language. And this is why different professions, doctors do what I'm calling locum. Lawyers, after you finish your law degree, you go to the Kenya School of Law, which now customizes your law degree to the practices in Kenya. After the Kenya School of Law, you go to get attached to a law firm. I've just forgotten the name that they use in law. There's a certain name they use when you're attached to a law firm.
Pupillage.
Pupillage. Thank you. Yeah, you do pupillage. So it's only after you've done that, after you've done locum and you've done pupillage, that somebody will now call you a doctor. Somebody will call you a lawyer. When you're attached to an engineering firm, somebody will call you a chartered engineer. So you can see in engineering, we are using the word chartered, we are using pupillage, we are using locum. Now, locum means you've done all the theory in an institution, but now you are going out there in the field to be attached to somebody who is practicing so that it teaches you the jargon and the terms that are actually used in the field. Then you become a professional. So for project management, there are certain things that you need to consider before you start saying, yes, I did a master's in project management after I did my BSc in computer science. Then I went and did a master's in project management. Am I a project manager by profession? So the active debate, or what people have been haggling with right up to now, is should project management be a profession in the same way as engineering, accounting, medicine, etc. are professions? Should you call yourself a certified project manager? Just the way somebody says, I am a doctor. Somebody says, I am a chartered engineer. Somebody says, I'm a lawyer. Because there are people who did law degree, but they are not lawyers. They cannot practice. Of course, we have con people who try to practice without that certification. So what characterizes these disciplines? Now, these disciplines have professional associations that certify who is legally allowed to use the job title and who can legally practice the profession. Medicine has a professional association. Engineers have a professional association, Institute of Electrical and Electronic Engineers in the UK. In Kenya, I think we have Engineering Association of Kenya, and so on. They have these bodies that certify you. Now, these disciplines provide a level of assurance of quality and discipline members who behave inappropriately. So, one, what these professional bodies are doing, when you're doing pupillage, when you're doing locum, what is happening is that in locum, there is a doctor who has been there for a long time, who knows the standards in medicine, and you have your academic qualifications, but he's watching you and he's directing you. This is how we do it in this way. Yes, you learned this in class, but when we implement it this way. We have the Architectural Association of Kenya, where architects are certified to be architects. But before you become an architect, you must work under a qualified architect or a qualified architect organization, where they will show you these are the standards that we use in this field. And now you've been seeing a lot of buildings collapsing. It's because we have quacks. People who call themselves architects and they're not architects because they have not been certified. If you are certified, you would know that these are the standards. So these professions have quality standards. These professions have disciplinary bodies where they can disqualify you from practicing. Doctors can be disqualified from practicing. Lawyers can be disqualified. Engineers can be disqualified. So these bodies are recognized and they're entrenched in law where they can tell you will not practice. A lawyer stole a client's money. The client reports, the lawyer will not practice. So we have those bodies that regulate what happens. Now, in project management, do we have those bodies? So I've raised these two issues. I've raised this first issue. Then there's also another issue. How much industry knowledge is required of a project manager? So you've done your computer science, then you've gone and done your project management degree, master's degree. Now, are you a project manager? Because by virtue of doing computer science, you're a computer scientist. But you've decided you're going to do project management so that you manage your product. Let's say you are an entrepreneur. So at which point will you be called a project manager in the software industry? Or how long? Because like in medicine, it's 1 year, locum is 1 year, pupillage is 1 year. I don't know what architects, how many years they take, and so on. So what length of time do we take for you to be certified as a professional? Now, currently, anyone can call him or herself a project manager. Why? Because they have been, okay, let me put it this way. Project management cuts across all fields. You can have projects in software. You can have projects in construction. You can have projects in accounting, and so on. So when you are calling yourself a project manager, what does that mean? Because we have different types of projects. Now, let's take the situation where you did a BSc degree in computer science. Then you go and do project management. Then at which point do you start calling yourself a project manager? Now, the moment you call you say, yes, I'm a project manager. Does that mean that you can do any project? You did BSc in computer science, you did project management and you passed. Now you are calling yourself a project manager. So people know you give them cards and you're a project manager. Does that mean that you can be a project manager in construction and yet you did BSc computer science? Does that mean you can be a project manager in accounting? So this leads to the other question. To what extent can an expert project manager move from one industry, e.g. IT, to another industry, e.g. hospitality? Because until recently, I don't know whether we have a degree in project management. But what I've seen in most cases, people do a basic degree. People do a degree pertaining to a certain domain. Like somebody is going to do BCom. Then he's going to do a master's in project management. Somebody does BSc in computer science. And then he goes and does an MSc in project management. So, but I'm yet to see somebody doing a BSc in project management. So project management is built on top of other domains. So once you've done your BSc in computer science and you do project management, now you call yourself a project manager. At which point, which projects are you going to do? Are you going to limit yourself to BSc? I mean, to IT projects, or can you also go to construction projects? So those are open questions that people have to answer with regard to treating project management as a profession. So two major organizations with worldwide impact on the practice of project management include the Project Management Institute, which is headquartered in the United States, and the International Project Management Association with headquarters in Switzerland. So going back to what I said about you doing a BSc in computer science and doing a master's in project management. Now, that does not qualify you to call yourself a project manager, a professional in project management. You need to get certifications from any of these two institutes, one in the United States and one in Switzerland. So what project management bodies do is they set standards. So to get certification, it means that you'll be conversant with those standards. So the Project Management Institute, this is the URL, usually gives two certificates. We have what is called the Certified Associate in Project Management and the Project Management Professional. And they also have others. So the International Project Management Association, who CRLs this, has also several certifications. Now, I've given these two so that you can go and look them up. So they'll give a lot of information about themselves, and they'll give you the certifications that they allow you to do. So you can not only start calling yourself a project manager after you've finished your theoretical classes. You've gotten your MS in project management. Then you need to certify yourself. You need to go and get some certification, where the certification allows you to learn about standards that are used in project management. So the Project Management Institute was established in 1969. Its two certifications are the Project Management Professional, which is the most popular. It also offers a Certified Associate in Project Management. So most of the time, you will start doing this certification. You will start by learning the Certified Associate in Project Management for novices, that is for starters. And then after you've done this is where you shall go and do Project Management Professional. Now, the Project Management Institute has published the Project Management Body of Knowledge, which is now in its 7th edition. So Project Management Professional, its requirements are that before you start doing exams, you need to have done 5 years of project management experience. You need to pass a rigorous exam, and you need to maintain ongoing professional development. Remember, standards keep changing. Now, like you see, lawyers meet annually. They meet, the LSK organizes annual yearly meetings. In fact, as a lawyer, you have to, you pay money yearly. So you attend those meetings so that they teach you the best practices in law. I know that about lawyers. I don't know how frequently doctors meet so that they are taught about the best practices. But certification goes along with you being taught new things or things that are currently happening. So currently, I think this figure has changed. There should be more. There are more than 5,900 project management professionals. So in addition to your academic qualifications, you need to get these certifications. And I've told you these certifications need you to have done some experience and need you to learn the new standards. So I think I want us to stop there. On Thursday, we shall start looking at the project management body of knowledge areas. So for today, let us stop there. Now, I hope you've been able to access the attendance. I put in some new addresses.
Hello, sir. I didn't receive the attendance sheet, although I'm in the classroom.
Okay, send me your email, please, Kariuki.
Okay.
Then I can add you.
I sent you one in the morning as well.
Okay, Aduma. Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
I'm
you.
also not in the class list as well, in the classroom.
You are not in the classroom.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I tried to update that, but if you're left out, just send me an email, then I'll see what I can do. And give me the details.